Reddit hub presence on r/Askreddit. People who have worked at Goodwill or other thrift stores etc. and processed donations. What's the craziest thing you found? I found $125 in the front pocket of a kid's coat. Had to be like a 3 to 4 YO. Next day I found more money in another jacket. About 10 years ago I worked at a chain thrift store. One morning we got a phone call from this gentleman saying, rather calmly, "I think I accidentally donated my mom." Naturally I had no clue what the fuck that meant. Turns out the guy donated his mom's ashes, so he left his number in case we found it. The whole backroom went on a hunt because it had turned into this competition on who would find his mom first. We found her, phoned him and he came and picked her up. We thought that was the last of him until we were processing some donations a few months later and found his mom again. We phoned him because we still had his contact information. His only reply was, "God damn it, he came and got her," and we never heard from him after that. Edit. To those asking, she was in a big heavy bronze. There's no way that's not an urn. I'm still not convinced the second time was an accident. Worked at a value village a long time ago, and a coworker found cremated ashes. They were in a box that had the funeral home info on it, so our manager contacted them about it. Not me, but an acquaintance from high school found a live hamster. Came with a little cage and all. Coworker found a live hand grenade. Bomb squad was called. Be careful when you donate grandpa's shit, people. I do not work at a Goodwill, but I found the DD-214 discharge papers of a World War II veteran at a thrift store, along with original family photos, documents, and letters. I was very upset, having recently handled so much paperwork around the death of my grandfather. I knew exactly what I was looking at when I saw the DD-214. I bought all the documents I could put my hands on and started googling the man's name. I tracked down his adult daughter who owned a small business with her husband. I found the email address of the small business and sent her what must have been an alarming email, although I was as cordial as I possibly could be. She got back to me almost immediately. It turned out he had remarried after the marriage to her mother ended. His new wife and her 2 sons pretty much took over the man's life, and the daughter saw very little of her father. At the end of his life they took charge of all of his possessions and cleared out his house without having told her anything. Even though the second wife had died and the 2 sons were not technically blood. She was very angered and upset by this at the time, understandably. I told her she must be the little girl in the baby pictures I had found, and I would be glad to send her all these materials. I shipped them out to her via FedEx with tracking, and she was so deeply moved. She didn't have any baby pictures with her father. I don't know if I've ever done anything good in my life. I'm sure I have. But I know I did a good thing that week. Internet research skills plus compassion for the win. I worked for a non-profit for seniors that had a charity shop in it. People often just dropped off boxes of stuff they found in their parents' attic. One box had a bunch of letters. Some of them were from WWII when the man was stationed at Camp Carson in Colorado, and one of them must have been something they were keeping from an older generation. It was a 1914 letter proposing marriage. It was so romantic. He fell in love with her when they went ice skating together. He included an advertisement for some houses they could buy. They were really nice houses, selling for about $1,500. I found a hidden WW1 photo. Got in a crappy picture showing the different knots. It was a seaside town I was working in at the time, so I put the picture out cheap. Few days later it fell off the wall and the frame broke, so I brought it to the back to chuck it out. Found a big military group photo hidden behind. No idea why it was hidden. Here's a picture, link in description. Edit. I've managed to post a clearer picture on my profile. Link is also in the description. I used to sweep the parking lot of a Goodwill and they would toss very interesting stuff in the dumpster. Hundreds of books. Like really expensive ones. Leather-bound sets of classical works from the 1920s, early prints of sci-fi novels. I found a nice collectible copy of Dune recently, family Bibles stacked thick with memories. Food dehydrators, paintings, collectible sports memorabilia, super valuable vintage tools and fixtures. Most of it is just stuff that nobody bothered checking the value on before chucking it out, and it's really sad. I found a destroyed collection of old Spalding baseball bats, the oldest being from the 30s. They were left in the dumpster, in standing water for days at least. It's sad to see things like that go, maybe because at one point someone loved them very much, and someone else decided that all the care it took to collect these treasures was a waste. A dead bat, a switchblade, a pocket watch painted with radium, and an 18th century wolf trap. Edit. I almost forgot a late 1800s book on phrenology. Not me but my aunt. One of the few surviving Enigma machines. The owner passed away, and his family dropped it off with a box of newspapers and some memorabilia from the war, etc. My aunt, being a history nut, figured out what it was, got it appraised, worth almost £100k, and looked for the family for 5 months before being able to return it to them. She didn't have a heart to take it under false pretenses. I was examining an old manual typewriter someone donated. It had a vinyl carrying case with a zipper pocket on the inside. I opened it and found a manual, the original receipt, and an envelope of Polaroid pictures. The pictures were of several women in lingerie or semi-nude. All looked like they were in their 60s 70s. At the bottom of the Polaroid was a name and date, covering about a 10-year span. One of the nicer things I came across working that job, better than dealing with the dirty underwear we got on the regular. A sword used by a Japanese officer in WWII. A suitcase full of adult toys. A coin collection worth nearly $2,000 accidentally left in a cupboard that was donated. A photo album of someone's wedding was donated amongst the belongings of the pastor that married the couple after he passed. The bride happened to be someone I went to school with. I tend to sort books at my store, so have found a few odd things in there. Cashier's bookmarks, about $150. A book with carved pages to conceal some jewels and gemstones. A few first edition books on agriculture from the 1800s. Lots of handwritten recipes, personal letters, and my favorite, a letter sent in the last mail delivery from Hong Kong before the British returned it to China, affixed with every stamp available at the time and mint versions of each of the stamps enclosed. At Goodwill, there was this castle set I was given as a Christmas present when I was 5 that was brought in. The cannon turret actually shot the little plastic rock and all the figures looked like dwarves. I never knew anyone else ever bought one in my life, so it was nice seeing it again. Great big plastic shopping bag full of cooked spaghetti. No sauce. Probably like 5 kilograms or so. I work at a thrift store as a donation handler. Gnarliest thing I had seen was a literal stack of mattresses left overnight during off hours. They were disgusting, crawling with bugs, and riddled in stains of various shades and hues. Nope the fuck out of that, called my manager, and they brought a forklift out to take them to the trash compactor. Just the other day we had a donor drop off a small crate, like a milk crate kind of thing, chock full of hentai. Just today I found a small, marble one-hitter pipe at the bottom of the donation bin. A few years ago, when there was an earthquake in Mexico City, many people were donating old clothes and stuff for people who were now homeless. I found a pair of pants that were as tall as me, and each leg could fit me inside of it. Edit. I don't live anywhere near Mexico City, but I was helping with the donations. I would have included a picture, but sadly, Dumbus me decided those were not important, and I think I deleted them a few months ago. Here are some other things I found. A literal goddamn baby-sized suit, a single glove the size of my head, a shirt made of what seemed to be the same fabric that my couch has. I'm not talking about just the same pattern, it was the literal fabric, and a pair of red overalls that were around the same size as the pants, although they were not as big. So, I worked for a charity. We picked up old clothes etc. and sold them in bulk to a thrift chain. When we unloaded the truck, it was common to toss the store employees the bags, and they would catch them before stacking them on racks. Well, one time some idiot put a big chef's knife in a bag of clothes. The store employee caught the garbage bag of clothes, wrapped his arms around it as he caught it, and proceeded to stab himself in the arm. After that, the policies were changed. We had to put the bags at the edge of the truck for them to take off, because our insurance didn't cover us off the truck, and this didn't cover them in it. Didn't work there, but was about 5 years when my mom brought me and my siblings with her to Goodwill. She raised us alone, didn't have a lot of money. This was essentially a school clothes trip. She was just trying to get in and get out. We had strict rules not to ask for a toy, or frankly just don't ask for anything. This is a necessity trip only. Naturally, that lasted long enough for us to walk through the automatic doors. My brother went one way, my sister another, and I headed straight for an enormous basket of wallets. I had made up my mind that I needed a wallet, and the only place I could beg with any hope to get one was second hand. I picked up one. Didn't like the pockets. Picked up another. Wasn't a fan of zippers. I hated the sound of Velcro, so that eliminated many options in the basket. Eventually I brought my carefully scrutinized selection to mom, who was already overwhelmed by my siblings' finds that she only told me no a few times before she relented. It cost her $2. We loaded our sacks of clothes and my precious new wallet into our van and started for home. I remember going through all of the pockets like I was performing a dissection, picturing what I could put here and what was supposed to go there. At some point, I found a slot that was inside of a pocket that was stiff, as if it was never used often. I poked at it enough to separate the fabric and found a bill inside, intricately folded into a tiny square. Before I even realized exactly what it was, I had ripped it out and held it out over the middle seat in the van, waving frantically and practically bouncing in my seat. Mom. Look. My wallet has money. It was 4 $20 bills, total of $80. I'll never forget the stunned yell and absolutely magical, gleeful laugh my mom let out. My siblings and I joined in, and we didn't stop smiling and talking about it the whole way home. That $80 wasn't much at all, but it was everything for us on that day. Mom let me keep her $20. I couldn't even tell you what I spent it on. But I still remember how that wallet smelled. I worked at a Goodwill when I was in high school, nearly 20 years ago, and there was a list of things we were not allowed to accept that makes sense, but you might not realize, such as kitchen knives, court displays, monitors, and TVs, anything with fluorescent lights, mattresses, and some other things I can't remember. When we got one of those things, but didn't notice in time to turn it away, we didn't really have a set policy on what to do with it. Mostly we'd put them in our dumpster, but sometimes I'd set it aside behind the building and put it in my car after work. It's how I am the owner of a full-sized sword I still don't know what to do with. The other thing that came in that was weird, but not because the thing itself was weird. If you've donated anything to a Goodwill, you know that they have a kind of drive-through donation area where you pull into a small pass-through garage with open doors on both sides. Then you and or an employee take your stuff out of your trunk or whatever, then you drive away. One day, a guy pulls up in a rusted out red Trans Am, or it has become a Trans Am in my memory, screeches to a halt, reaches over to his passenger seat, grabs a plastic bag completely full of something, and holds it out through the driver's side window. I walk toward the car, and just as I was about to grab the bag, he looks me straight in the eyes and says, "This is for you," like I was Frodo and this was the One Ring. He drops the bag and I barely catch it as he speeds away without saying another word. So, what was in the bag? It was entirely cassette tapes. The Cure's first single, The Velvet Underground's underrated self-titled album, a Tom Pretty B-side collection, 2 records by the Sugar Cubes, The Pretenders, and more. I had just gotten into Talking Heads and David Bowie. My music taste was evolving, but it was still mostly 90s grunge. I'd never heard of the Velvet Underground. So, like with the sword, I set it aside and took it home myself. "It was for me," he said. My car still had a cassette deck, so I started listening to this curated collection of one person's music taste. It was like that cliche of your older brother introducing their music to you, except I have no idea who this person was. It ended up being exactly what I needed at exactly the right time in my life. I still have that Velvet Underground album displayed on the wall in my home office.